Ladies and gentlemen, as part of the Jeremiah Show, welcome to It's Radio with TV's Tim Stack. Now here's the host of the show, a man who has done countless spit takes on camera, but only one in real life, caused by Charles Nelson Riley. It's TV's Tim Stack. Yay! Tim Stack is back. It's been 2 weeks, and I know what you people have gone through without me. It's just, I feel so bad for you. Anyway, welcome to another edition of It's Radio with TV's Tim Stack. I have an old friend guest today that I'm very excited to have for a whole lot of reasons, not just to promote all of his stuff, but we go way back, and there's a lot to talk about. But I want to tell this Charles Nelson Riley story. I think my guest might get a kick out of it because he might know some of the people involved in it. So I've talked before. I was very good friends with Dom DeLuise and Carol DeLuise from the movie Best Little Warehouse in Texas. And I got invited, my wife, Jana, and I got invited to their wedding. And the wedding was like on one side of the room, it was all 21 Jump Street guy, like Johnny Depp. And because Peter DeLuise was an actor on 21 Jump Street. My guest might have run into Peter DeLuise. Corin, have you run into Peter DeLuise over the years?
I worked with him on Stargate
That's what
as
I figured.
a director numerous times.
That's
many
what I
times.
figured. Okay, we'll get to that. So we'll put a pin in that. So I'm at the wedding, and one side's 21 Jump Street, and at our table, it's like Charles Nelson Riley, his husband Fernando Lamas, Ricardo Montalban, all these old like showbiz people that I grew up watching on television, and I'm just thrilled. But Charles Nelson Riley was particularly funny. So all of a sudden they announce, hey, everybody, like, I can't remember their names, like Schmenkman and Noodleman have a song. And these two old guys who hadn't really written anything since like 1952 get up on stage and they do this song they've written for Peter and his then wife, they've since split up, Gina. So the music starts and it's just like dun 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 dun. His name was Peter. Her name was Gina. She is sweeter. He's keener. Oh, Peter and Gina. And then there's a second verse. Hey, they met in high school. He was no fool. And then there's a third verse, and they went on. And then there's a bridge, and they went whoa, whoa. And then there's a fourth verse and a fifth verse, and finally they finished the song. And by the end, you know, plates are being eaten on, but they get a nice round of applause, and the guys are so thrilled. They're so excited that they think Peter and Gina is going to be the next big hit, and they run by the table. I happen to be sipping some champagne, and Charles Nelson Riley says in his voice, "Say, fellas, love the song. There's talk of an album." And I, of course, then spit my champagne all over the table. Say, fellas, there's talk of an album. I'm a big Charles Riley fan. Okay, let's get to my guest. Let's cue the music for my guest.
Yo, you see my new jeans? I have a date tonight.
Sorry, you lose, Clark. Bye-bye, blue jeans.
Are you sure you haven't seen my jeans, Shelly? Your Depeche Mode tickets were in the pocket.
Whoa! Emmy, my guest, Corin Nemec, Emmy Award-nominated actor from I Know My Name is Steven, the star of the still very appreciated show, Parker Lewis Can't Lose, later a series regular on Stargate. I'm only getting into like half the credits here. Author of the book Venice High, I want to talk about that. Star of the movie Half Dead Fred, and a lot more. Plus the only child who has ever made me money, Corin Nemec. Yay!
Let me clear myself out here so I can talk. How is everybody? Woo!
Nice to see you, sir. You look great.
Look, I
You
still
really
have my
do.
hair. I
You
still have all my
your
hair.
I do not. I didn't back then. I sort of had some hair during Parker Lewis, but they used to color it in.
No, you didn't.
Looked like
You had
I
a comb
more.
over.
Yeah.
You had more hair on the floor of the makeup trailer than you had on your head.
You know, that would have been actually really good for that character, is to have a good comb over. It just rose up above the scalp just enough.
It
Kind of
it would have,
yeah.
especially when the wind blows. You get that gull wing happening.
Yeah, they did that in Kingpin. That was Bill Murray. The hair goes up straight up in the air. It's one of my favorite funny bits. How are you, sir?
Good, very good. How about
You are-
yourself?
I'm pretty good. Yeah. Getting through it. The writer's strike. I don't know. The actors are about to go out. We'll see what happens.
Oh, yes.
It's either the
I'm
end of it
about to
all
go
or
out. I'm gonna let my dog in before he chews the door up. Come on in, varmint. Get a life.
Cute doggy.
Get a life.
What is that? A corgi?
Yes, it's a corgi. They're so needy, these things. They're so needy.
And they love that Florida weather coming from
Oh.
Scotland.
Dude, he's not a fan.
Yeah, I bet. He likes that air.
But yes, yeah. So yes, Tim and I have had some fantastic time and memories on Parker Lewis. That's for sure. That was a show for the ages, and I have to say, I mean, obviously Tim didn't have to work as long of hours as I had to.
No,
work,
I did not.
but he knows how much hard work went into making that show what it was, and that was almost its downfall, because it was costing us as much or a little bit more than it was costing to make 90210. So they're looking at 90210 with like twice the cast and an hour-long show, and they're like, Parker Lewis, half the cast, half-hour show, cost just as much. They couldn't couldn't quantify the math on that one, I don't think.
No, I think you're right. And the funny thing, usually studios that own the show was on Fox, but studios that own the show, which I think was Columbia back then before Sony bought it. Wasn't it Columbia?
I think it might have already been Sony then.
Okay. But they were happy to get rid of the show because it was costing them too much money. But
do you remember? Do you remember One-Eyed Dutch, our glass-eyed craft service guy on the show first season?
No, I don't remember him.
You don't remember him? Well, we had this. I can't believe you don't remember this guy. We had this guy named Dutch who had this glass eye. Nothing against people with glass eyes. It's totally fine. I understand. So, and he was our craft service guy, and he was a relatively dirty fellow. And it made me very apprehensive about eating at the craft service table. And one day I went over there, and he was cutting some tomatoes in the morning for the bagels and lox and all the stuff, Yeah. And as he's cutting the bagels, I look over, and he's got the eye pus coming out of his glass eye.
That goes well on the bagel.
Very politely, I go, Dutch, your eye's dripping. And he puts the knife down. He goes, oh, and he goes like this, rubs it into his hands, and goes back to slicing the tomatoes. I swear to God. So I complained to the producers, to Clyde and Lon and Robert and everything, and I told them the story, and they were aghast. And so he ended up being fired.
Really?
But the thing is he worked for the studio, so they ended up placing him in another department somewhere else in the studio. But I think he knew that I got him fired. Every now and then he would like ride by our studio on the lot, and he'd look over from his bike and like give me the old glass eye, like.
Hey,
it was terrifying.
Let's go back to that. First of all, Parker Lewis. You can watch Parker Lewis on Crackle. Corin and I make about 8 cents a year from the reruns of Parker Lewis on Crackle, but you can watch it. And it really is a fantastic show. And I'm going to tell you why. Part of it is Corin is it was just so appealing, and his character was so appealing. And you were just talking about the expense, but the show was really about the directing. Would you agree with me about that?
Yes, it was a show where when I was first meeting with Clyde and Lon and Robert and all of them, and they were telling me what the show was going to be, because my main concern when I first got involved with the show, their interest in me playing the character stemmed from a TV special I did a number of years before for CBS called What's Alan Watching?
Yes,
with Eddie Murphy production with Tommy Schlamme. Tommy Schlamme directing, and Fran Drescher was in it, Barbara Barry, Peter Michael Getz, just a, a huge, great cast. And I had a similar character in it. And so, but I was very concerned that it was going to be a half-hour sitcom, because I had done the last season of Webster when I was a kid, playing Nikki Papadopoulos, Webster's live-in cousin. And it was a misery, an absolute misery. And I couldn't stand the writing style of sitcom, the line joke, the rhythm of it, and all of that. I found it very difficult to make it organic for me as an actor to hit those, those punchlines, And then I didn't realize until later that it doesn't really matter, because they're going to drop canned laughter in there anyway. So it doesn't matter if it's not funny or not. People are going to think, oh, I heard laughter. It must have been funny. I missed it.
Yeah,
but
that tells you.
But that said, they told me that they were going to do the style of 3 O'Clock High, that movie with Casey Siemaszko, and I was a huge fan of the cinematic style of that movie. So when they told me that was the approach they were going to do, it was going to be like a half hour of 3 O'Clock High meets Ferris Bueller kind of thing, and I was like, I'm in. I'm 100% in, and that's when the camera became a character in our story.
Yes.
And the directing was so essential, and we didn't have it put a lot of pressure on the actors, because there was zero time to mess your lines up, or to not be on time, or to not be ready, or to not be on point, or to not have your energy up, or to not. I mean, it was just go because the time it took to set up these cameras, and we were using a lot of equipment that hadn't been really tested too much before. We were using the hot heads that they used on 3 O'Clock High and some of that, but there was some equipment that they were testing out for the first time ever on our show.
There was a shot, I don't know if you remember, it was an episode where Mary Ellen, who played my wife, Mary Ellen Trainer, rest in peace. No,
God bless her.
But it was a forced perspective shot, where the camera zooms out, but the lens zooms in, and it's a really weird, crazy shot. And it had never been tried on television. And I said to the DP, like, this is going to be pretty. He goes, yeah, I think Spielberg did it once, and that's it. Nobody's done this shot. And it
where you zoom out and push in at the same time. It's
at the time
it was used. I can't remember which classic director used it. I don't know if maybe it was in Psycho or something, or there was some movie where it was used really well in for one of those moments of terrifying, like that's how I recall it. But
you're absolutely right, because from except with your character and your relationships, because you were in so much, and trust me, I'm not knocking this. I love that job. That job got me to Santa Barbara. That job is fantastic. But you're absolutely right, because the actors, it would take so long to set up the shot. The actors had to deliver quickly, because there was no time, because it was always rushing to somehow finish production that always went over, that got expensive. And that's one of the reasons.
Always went over. Yeah. Oh, we went into, on average, by Thursday or Friday, we were into 16 hours, 18 hours. I know we did at least one 20-hour day on season 1 or 2. And that was just, I mean, I remember I showed up for work, and it was daylight, and then it was night, and I left for work, and the sun was coming up, and I was like, oh my Lord, I shouldn't even be driving right now. This is terribly unsafe.
Did you start that show emancipated as a child actor?
No. I was already 18. I had turned 18. I did the pilot 2 weeks after I graduated high school. So and then it got picked up for a series, I think 3 months later or something like that.
Right.
But it was I was already 18. Yeah.
Gotcha. And so did you have to audition for it, or they just offered you the part?
No, that's just, fortunately for me, because of What's Alan Watching, if I remember all of this correctly, it's been so long since I've really thought about it. Clyde was over at CBS he was a showrunner and creator of Houston Nights for them.
Oh yeah.
If I'm remembering correctly. And at that time we were doing What's Alan Watching over there. and he was a huge fan of what was happening with that show and really curious about it. From my recollection of the story. So
Yeah.
if I'm wrong, he'll correct me down the road if you ever get him on. But and then he had been asked by CBS to come up with a teen comedy, something that would appeal to younger generation, this, that, and he came up with this Parker Lewis show along with Lon Diamond, who I guess he brought on to help create that with him.
Right.
And CBS ended up not picking it up. They also didn't pick up What's Alan Watching as a series, which is what it was supposed to be. It ended up just being released as a special. But I can't recall exactly if it was after the show that Clyde had left CBS with that What's Alan Watching came out, or before, or whatever. But he had seen that show and he thought I'd be right for the character. And CBS didn't pick it up, and the rights reverted back to them,
Right.
and they ended up taking it over to Fox a number of years later after Ferris Bueller came out, which made those type of shows, I guess, a hot commodity.
Yeah.
At that time, and then they were able to sell it. So it was actually, from my understanding, it was created and developed before Ferris Bueller ever came out as a movie. So any comparisons to it are purely superficial.
On that note, we're gonna take our first break, but I got a lot to promote here about you, because you can find Corin on Twitter, and I'm Corin Nemec. He's got a show on YouTube that's really interesting that I want to talk about if we have time. The Love America Tour, which was like your kind of really offbeat travel show. Is that a good way to put it?
Well, it was supposed to be an offbeat travel show, and it ended up being a desperate fight for our lives just to get the interviews.
Funny how that works. There's a movie called Half Dead Fred that I really liked. It's on Tubi, or you can rent it on Apple and Amazon. And what you were just mentioning, you got all these other, and
Dead Man's Hand is out right now as well, and it's on VOD across different platforms. I co-wrote it with Brian Skiba, the director, who's a good friend of mine. We've done a number of films together over the years, and it's starring Stephen Dorff, Cole Hauser, Jack Kilmer, who's Val Kilmer's son, does a great job headlining it. And I'm very excited about it. It's a great classic Western. It's based on a graphic novel that was published by Source Point Press called No Rest for the Wicked by the Minor Brothers. And it doesn't, Brian did a great job not over directing it, because it's based on a graphic novel.
Hold on. I want to talk this on the B side. Let's take a break. We'll take a break. We'll come right back. I'm talking to Corin Nemec. You're listening to It's Radio with TV's Tim Stack.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.